Welcome back to New Jersey Parent Politics. I'm Jim McQueen. The battle over raising the debt ceiling continues in Washington, with events changing by the minute. But let's get down to the bottom line. What's the bad dream for New Jersey if there's a delay or a default? Joining us now is Brendan Gill, who runs the state offices for U.S. Senator Frank Lautenberg, who's down there, maybe as we speak, doing this. Just for perspective's sake, how much money comes from the federal government to New Jersey? Jersey has about $30 billion budget, and it's about $12 billion in federal aid.
Sure, it's about a third, Jim. $12 billion this year in the state budget of federal money that the state is counting on. So, right now with what's going on in Washington, there could be some severe consequences for the state based on what's happens over the next couple of days.
Now, where do these things come? I mean, the federal aid that comes, it seems, it's just everywhere and involved in everything from highway transportation aid to $1.5 million, I think the number is, Social Security check recipients here in New Jersey.
That's a great statistic, Jim. 1.5 million people in the state of New Jersey receive Social Security benefits. A third of that 1.5 million depend on Social Security for their primary source of income. So this is, again, a critical issue that hopefully will be solved in the next couple of days, because you have 1.5 million people who potentially will be losing their Social Security, or at least having their Social Security cut. Again, there's been no specifics if they're to the extent of the cuts, where these cuts will come. The treasurer for the state of New Jersey has made it clear that they are ready and prepared to deal with these cuts if they happen. But yes, it's a third of the state budget requires federal funding.
Well, one of the intriguing political things that comes from that, if that happens here, is that the governor would have to go back to the legislature after they just went through this bruising budget battle that ended a month ago, and have to go back for givebacks on this type of thing. That would be during a legislative re-election year, having to go to them and say, now let's cut more programs. Let's make ourselves more popular to people when we go for re-election here. And they're all in new districts this year. That has to be their nightmare scenario.
Absolutely. And in addition to those cuts, actually just this morning, Jim, Moody's put out a report which said 4 counties, which have now AAA bond rating, potentially will lose that rating as a result of what's going to happen in Washington. So again, you're talking about not just state governments, but county and local governments having the inability to access credit markets, to raise money and bond for projects in the areas of transportation, education. So this is, again, severe. I don't want to sound alarmist, but it's a scary time right now.
Well, one of the cascading consequences is what you said here in New Jersey, but when you look at what's going on also in Washington here, and clearly there's not a vote as we speak now, but the Democrats are looking at a package that Republicans send over that have in it, sort of, they say, the buried silver bullet here, which is you have to vote on the debt ceiling again next year. What's next year? It's a presidential election year.
Right.
What's next year? It's a congressional re-election year on here.
Right.
So I think Democrats, above all, as an incumbent party, want to avoid that kind of thing happening.
Right.
But on the flip side, Democrats seem a little reluctant to want to give in to a lot of the cuts that even polls show most people want to see happen.
Well, I think, Jim, that's actually not true. I think actually Democrats are willing to make the tough choices. They're willing to match those cuts dollar for dollar. Senator Reed's plan, the cuts are matched dollar for dollar in his plan. But what we are not willing to do is have a 6-month limit on this. So we're dealing with this problem 6 months from now. I think reasonably, what Senator Reed has asked for and what Senator Lautenberg supports is an extension of this solution. And I think what you see today and what you see going on in Washington, and what I'm hearing as a state director for Senator Lautenberg, people calling the office, they're saying they want compromise. They're saying they want the two parties to work together to solve this, not to be involved in this partisan bickering, but to come up with a common solution for the long-term health of our economy.
Well, partisan bickering, but also Governor Christie said this week when he was on the stump that where's President Obama on the leadership side of this thing? It seems that the voices are coming out of the Congress and very little is coming from him. In fact, he said that the President of the United States was really dealing in platitudes and not really doing the job.
Well, I would respectfully disagree. I mean, I think the President has been working nonstop on this issue. He's laid out a plan which I think represents, well, not so much laid out a plan, but I think he has echoed again what most Americans want. They want a compromise. They want a deal to be reached so that the government can get back to work and those in government can get back to work on the pressing issues, which is putting Americans back to work.
And not have a debt ceiling vote in a presidential year or a congressional re-election
Well, listen,
year.
I really hope, I mean, there's been some speculation that that is the goal of the Tea Party, that the goal of the Tea Party is to extend this, make this deal for 6 months to make sure that unemployment continues to rise and hopes that President Obama will then lose. So I really hope that that's not true. I hope that that's not the goal, but it is no doubt right now some pretty scary times out there, and we're hoping that compromise prevails.
Very good. All right, Brendan Gill, with the view of Washington, what happens in New Jersey on that debt thing if it defaults all the way back. There's plenty more political intrigue closer to home. We break out the score sheet to name the winners and losers over the past few weeks and coming out of that budget debate. Stay with us. A lot more coming up.